Hello everyone and welcome back to our virtual Mishnah Berurah share. We're holding a Mishnah Berurah Chelik Beis, and Emir Hashem today we will be completing the Ayin Vav Amud Aleph, and I hope doing at least a piece of Ayin Vav Amud Beis as well. Before we begin our learning should be a schus for Achenu Kol Beis Yisrael, Hanesunim Batzara Bashivya Ha'imdim Ben Bayam Ben Bayabasha Hamoke Mirachem Alehem V'Yitziam Yitzar L'Lervacha Me'afela La'ira U'Mishibed L'Geula Hashta Bagala Uzman Karev and Amar Amen. Our learning should also be a schus refuah shalema for Ariel Yosef ben Miriam Rezel and Meir ben Chai Sarah, who are in need of Rachamei Shamayim. They should have a refuah shalema b'sar shar chayla Yisrael b'karev. So, in the last year, we were here in Siman Ayin Daled Sif Vav, which begins on the top line of Ayin Vav Amud Aleph. And what have we learned here so far? We've been discussing the halachas of berachas hayayin, bar pri hagafen, by the Seudah. In the very beginning of this siman, we learned that even though normally when you make a hamoitzi on pas at the beginning of the Seudah, that hamoitzi covers everything else that you're going to eat and drink during the Seudah, because everything is considered a tuffle to the pas. Not so by bar pri hagafen. If you have a Seudah and you wash, and then during the Seudah you want to have a nice drink of a nice Cabernet, you need to make a bar pri hagafen. Why? Because since yayin is so chashuv, the words that we saw was, it's roish v'rishayin l'chal hamashkim, it's the king of all beverages, therefore yayin cannot be considered a tuffle to the pas, and hamoitzi does not pater pas. So you're sitting down. Now, let's not talk about Shabbos right now. Shabbos is different because by Shabbos you have kiddush. Let's not talk about Shabbos right now. It's Tuesday night and you're having a beautiful steak dinner and you want to have a nice glass of Cabernet with your steak. You need to make a bar pri hagafen in middle of the Seudah. So the yayin shebesaycha Seudah requires its own berachah rishona. How about berachah acharonah? So here in Sif Vav we learned that yayin, even though it needs its own berachah rishona, and it's not considered a tuffle to the pas, the hamoitzi on the pas does not cover the yayin. You need to make a bar pri hagafen, but the yayin that you drink beside Seudah does not need a berachah acharonah. The berachas hamazon that you're going to make on the Seudah is going to cover the berachah acharonah on your yayin. And the Mishnah Berurah explained this to us in Ois Cotton Chaf Gimel. And the Mishnah Berurah told us the reason it doesn't need its own berachah acharonah is the hayayin machmas Seudah hu chashiv, because there's no question that the yayin is considered machmas Seudah, and since the yayin is machmas Seudah, it is covered by the berachah acharonah. Berachah rishona it needs, because what's going to cover the berachah rishona on the yayin? Pas. That's only if it's a tuffle. The fact that it comes machmas Seudah doesn't make it covered by the berachah hamoitzi on the pas. In order for it to be covered by the berachah hamoitzi on the pas, the yayin would have to be considered tuffle to the pas. Yayin can't be tuffle to pas because yayin is too chashiv, so it can't be tuffle to the pas. So here we have this interesting distinction. If you drink yayin b'saycha Seudah, it needs a bar pri hagafen because it's not tuffle to the pas, so it's not covered by the berachah rishona on the pas. It does not need its own berachah acharonah, because since it comes machmas Seudah, it's part of the Seudah, so the berachas hamazon is going to cover it. Another reason, not spoken about over here, is that we learn in the Gemara that yayin is considered sa'id. Yayin is a drink that fills you up and satisfies you. Therefore, it's similar to mazon. It's similar to a food, and it's covered by berachas hamazon. But in any case, the halacha that we saw is very simply put. If you drink yayin b'saycha Seudah, you don't make a berachah acharonah on that yayin. That yayin is covered by berachas hamazon. Then the Mechaber in Sif Vav told us another halacha. He said, not only does berachas hamazon cover yayin b'saycha Seudah, berachas hamazon also covers yayin shelifnei hamazon. Let's remember what that is. And again, I'm purposely leaving kiddush out of this discussion just for the moment. It's Tuesday night, and apparently this was very much the custom in the times of the Gemara. So you're sitting down to have your Seudah. The very first thing that they would do before Netilas Yadayim, before Hamoitzi, they would take a glass of wine and they would drink a glass of wine. So that was an appetizer. They would drink a glass of wine. Now, of course, that glass of wine needs a berachah agafen. You're drinking that glass of wine in a vacuum. Nothing came before it. You're sitting down by the table. You're pouring yourself a nice glass of Cabernet. Of course, you need to make a berachah agafen. So you had your glass of Cabernet. Now you get up and you go, you wash the Netilas Yadayim, you have a moitzi, and you eat a Seudah. Says the Mechaber, you should know that when you bench, the benching is going to cover the yayin shelifnei hamazon. Not only does benching cover yayin shebesoich hamazon, and the reason we said is because the yayin besoich hamazon is considered machmas haseudah. It's considered something that you're drinking as part of the Seudah. It's ba lishrois hamaychol. The Mishnah Berurah says in Ois Katan Chav Gimel, Da'yayin makmas haseudah hu chashiv the ba lishrois hamaychol. When you drink the wine together with your steak, it's washing down the food, so it's makmas haseudah. Therefore, berachas hamazon covers it. Not only that, says the Mechaber, but it also covers any wine that you drank before the Seudah, before you washed, before you made Hamoitzi, as long as it was right before the Seudah, not if it was 2 hours ago. But if it was right before the Seudah, berachas hamazon is going to cover it. And the Mishnah Berurah explained to us that the reason that's covered by berachas hamazon is to keven shebarm liftay chameyayin lahamshicha adam l'tayv samaychel. That yayin sheliftay hamazon is an appetizer. Since it's an appetizer, that is also considered machmas haseudah. It's part of the Seudah, and berachas hamazon is going to pater it. So what are the two halachas over here that the Mishnah Berurah told us, that the Mechaber tells us over here in Sivav? One is yayin covers, one is berachas hamazon, benching, covers yayin shebesoich haseudah, and that's easier to understand. It's besoich haseudah, you're drinking it lishrois hamaychol, to wash down the food. Berachas hamazon therefore covers it. Berachas hamazon also covers yayin shelifnei hamazon. Why does it cover yayin shelifnei hamazon? Because yayin shelifnei hamazon is an appetizer. Then comes along the Mishnah Berurah, and the Mishnah Berurah in Ois Katan Chav tells us, take a look, and this is really, he's coming off the Ramah. The Ramah here said, Va'ayin l'kamon soif Siman reish ayin vav. The Ramah sent us to Siman reish ayin vav in Hilchos Shabbos. Says the Mishnah Berurah, why is the Ramah sending me to Hilchos Shabbos? He says, take a look at Siman reish ayin vav sif yud le'inyan kiddush. Kiddush is basically yayin sheliftei hamazon. It's a cup of wine that you drink before washing, that you drink before the Seudah. Says the Mishnah Berurah, nice chavav. Why is the Ramah sending me to Reish Ayin Vav? Le'inyan kiddush. To Sham Mevur, because over there in Siman Reish Ayin Vav Sif Yud, it is spelled out the Gamboy berachas hamazon paitrasai, that you should know benching covers kiddush also. So, in other words, the Mechaber told me over here that on a Stam Tuesday night, you drink a kais of yayin before the Seudah, you don't need a berachah acharonah. Benching is going to cover it. Says the Ramah, take a look at Siman Reish Ayin Vav, where you'll see that it also covers kiddush. Now, why would you think that there's a difference between kiddush and standard yayin shelifnei hamazon on Tuesday night? The answer is simple. The cup of Cabernet that you drank before the steak dinner on Tuesday night, that you clearly drank as an appetizer. Why are you drinking it? You're drinking it before the Seudah, liftay chabayayim, to spur on your appetite. Mit the essen, the Appetit kommt mit the essen. The appetite comes when you start to eat. So you drink a cup of wine as an appetizer. So berachas hamazon is going to cover it. Is that why you drink kiddush? Do you drink kiddush as an appetizer? No, you don't drink kiddush as an appetizer. You drink kiddush because you have a chiv of kiddush. That's why you drink kiddush. Kamash malan in Siman Reish Ayin Vav, that might be true. Might be true. It is true that you're drinking the kiddush because you have a chiv of kiddush. Nevertheless, it is still patered by berachas hamazon. Says the Mishnah Berurah in Siman Reish Ayin Vav, why? Why is it covered? by berachas hamazon. Says the Mishnah Berurah over there, the kevan shehu b'mkaim Seudah, because since the halacha is that you need kiddush b'makom Seudah, therefore tzarchei Seudahu, the kiddush is clearly a tzarchei Seudah. It's part and parcel of the Seudah, umachmosa huba. The whole kiddush is coming as part and parcel of the Seudah. And that's why berachas hamazon is going to cover it. Okay, now, if you take a look at Siman Reish Ayin Vav, this halacha seems to be very open and closed. In Siman Reish Ayin Vav, the Mechaber says, berachas yayin shel kiddush, poiteres yayin sheb'saycha Seudah. The hagafen on kiddush covers any wine that you're going to drink during the Seudah. Ve'enoi tarn berachah la'acharav. And you don't need a berachah acharonah on the yayin of kiddush. Why? The berachas hamazon patrasai, because bentching is going to pater it. Says the Mishnah Berurah, what I just read to you, because kiddush b'makom Seudah is tzarchei Seudah, and therefore the berachas hamazon is going to cover it. The Mishnah Berurah doesn't bring down any dissenting opinions, not in the Mishnah Berurah, not in the Biur Halacha, not in the Shar HaTziyun. So in Hilchas Shabbos, this comes across as a very open shut halacha. But now let's take a look here on Ayin Vav Amud Aleph at Biur Halacha Dibur HaMaschil v'chein poiteres yayin shalifnei hamazon. Says the Chavetz Chaim, this halacha is not so pashut. Says the Chavetz Chaim, ein din zeh bar. This is not so clear. Ayin Baramban b'Melchamas Perak Arvei Psachim Chavdalin Amud Aleph. Take a look in Daf Chavdayin Amud Aleph in the letter of the Rif. Take a look at Masechtas Arvei Psachim at the Melchamas. Uberan, and take a look at the Ran. The Seivrim Sham, they hold the Bein B'Yayin Shel Kiddush, whether we're talking about the wine that you drink by Kiddush, Lifnei Hamazon, Ubein Shar Yayin Shel Lifnei Hamazon, or standard Tuesday night Yayin Shel Lifnei Hamazon, Tzarich berachah acharonah. The Ramban and the Ran hold that Yayin Shel Lifnei Hamazon, both the regular Yayin Shel Lifnei Hamazon that we're calling an appetizer, and certainly the Yayin of Kiddush, they're not covered by berachas hamazon, and they need a berachah acharonah. V'chein das HaTosfos psachim kuf amud beis, and that's shitas HaTosfos as well. Soif dibur hamaschil yidei yayin ayin sham. So over here, the Chavetz Chaim brings down in the Biur Halacha. Yes, we have a mechaber over here that's telling me, and this is the shitas harosh. If you take a look at the Be'er HaGoyla is cut l'chaf, the mechaber is coming off of a rosh. Shitas harosh is that bentching covers yayin shel lifnei hamazon, and therefore bentching also covers kiddush. But that's not the opinion of the Ramban, it's not the opinion of the Ran, and it's not shitas HaTosfos. So the Chavetz Chaim is perturbed. We have a mechaber that's paskening like a rosh, but against the rosh, we have a Ramban, a Ran, and shitas HaTosfos. So the Chavetz Chaim is very uncomfortable with this, and therefore continues the Chavetz Chaim in the Biur Halacha, and he says, ulefizeh, and according to this, nira, it would seem to me, shenachayin le'inyan kiddush shaloi lishtais rak kimaloi lugmov. Says the Chavetz Chaim, I'm very uncomfortable with this psak of the mechaber. Therefore, suggests the Chavetz Chaim that there's a way we could get out of the problem. How? When you make kiddush before the Seudah, how much yayin do you have to drink to be yotze kiddush? All you need is a maloi lugma. A maloi lugma is a cheekful. Okay. How much yayin do you need to have a chiyuv of a berachah acharonah? You need a revius. Maloi lugma is less than a revius. So says the Chavetz Chaim, in order to kriach out of this problem, when you make kiddush, don't drink more than a maloi lugma. Drink a maloi lugma. You were yotze kiddush. You did not generate a chiyuv berachah acharonah, and therefore you have no suffix. You definitely don't have to make a berachah acharonah now, because you have no chiyuv berachah acharonah. And you'll go on, you'll wash, you'll bench, and everything is fine. Akakach motzasi. Then the Chavetz Chaim says, later on I found, shekein kasam b'chayodam klal mem aleph sif gimel, that in a chinami, that's what the chayodam suggests. Only drink a maloi lugma by kiddush. Then says the Chavetz Chaim, v'im shasa kolakois. But what if you didn't listen to my eitzah? What if you didn't listen to the chayodam, and you drank a whole revius? Now you have a chiyuv berachah acharonah. What do you do now? Now you're caught in this machlokes rishonim. According to the Rosh, no problem. You're going to eat the Seudah, you're going to bench. Benching is going to cover your berachah acharonah on kiddush. But according to Taisus, the Ramban, and the Ran, you need a berachah acharonah now. What do? Says the Chavetz Chaim, I'll tell you what you do. Don't make a berachah acharonah now. Go to your Seudah, bench, Yechavin be'ez berkas hamazon lifter hayayin sheshasa mikaydim, and have specific das when you bench, that the benching should cover the yayin that you drank by kiddush. The yoytze b'zeh b'di'evid, and b'di'evid your berkas hamazon then will cover you, even according to the other Rishonim. Ukilakaman b'simin reish ches sif yud zayin. Okay, so far, what's the Chavetz Chaim's eitzah? Eitzah number one, only drink malay lugma, so you don't generate a chi of berachah acharonah. Eitzah number two, you drank more than a malay lugma, you drank a revius or more, you generated a berachah acharonah. No, eat the Seudah, and by benching have das beferish that I wanted to cover the yayin that I drank by kiddush. Achain, however, says the Chavetz Chaim, lefi mashim avur b'paiskim, but according to the paiskim, who say, there are some Rishonim that say that you generate a chiyuv of a berachah acharonah with even less than a revius, and even with a malay lugma. So my first eitzah didn't help. Lachein hanachain. Therefore, the Bir Halacha says my best eitzah is shetamid yichavin beberachas hamazon lifter hayayin shel kiddush. You should make sure to always have in mind to cover the yayin of kiddush with berachas hamazon. You should always have beferish das to cover the yayin of kiddush with berachas hamazon. Okay, so that's what we have over here in the Chavetz Chaim. So if somebody would come and ask halacha l'maisa, what's the deal by kiddush? I make kiddush. Do I need a berachah acharonah on kiddush? Is it covered by berachas hamazon? According to the Chavetz Chaim, even though again, when you learn Siman Reish Ayin Beis, in Reish Ayin Beis, the Mishnah Berurah doesn't say a word. In Reish Ayin Beis, the Mishnah Berurah seems to be machriya, like the Machaber, that there's no question that benching covers the yayin of kiddush. But over here in Kuf Ayin Dalet, the Chavetz Chaim seems very troubled. He's like kind of holding that it's a suffix because it's a machlokes rishonim. And he really wants you to creep out of the suffix. And the way he wants you to creep out of the suffix at the end of this Bir Halacha is, don't make a berachah acharonah on the kiddush, but have beferish das that berachas hamazon should cover it. Not only that, really he wants you to drink less than a revius. Only drink a malay lugma to lessen the shaila. Okay, that's what we have over here so far from the Chavetz Chaim. Now, I want to go back to Mishnah Berurah Eis Katan Chav Hey. In the previous share, we did not do the entire Mishnah Berurah Eis Katan Chav Hey. I skipped the middle of Mishnah Berurah Eis Katan Chav Hey. So go to Mishnah Berurah Eis Katan Chav Hey, go 3 lines down into that Eis Katan to the word Ule'inyan. Over here, the Chavetz Chaim gets into another question. Right now, we were discussing yayin shelifnei hamazon. But how about other beverages that you drink lifnei hamazon? Let's say you have a coffee. Let's say you take a glass of water. Whatever it is. Does benching cover that? So right before you went to go wash and start your Seudah, you had a drink. Do you make a bar nefashos now? Or do you say, I'm about to go into a Seudah, I'll cover it with benching? Says the Mishnah Berurah. When it comes to other beverages that you drink before the Seudah, and then during the meal, you don't drink any beverages at all. And we'll see why that's pertinent. But right now, the case of the Mishnah Berurah is, you had a drink before the meal, and now during the meal, you don't drink. Das harbe acharonim is the opinion of many acharonim. Tzarich levarach aleim berachah acharonah. You have to make a bar nefashos on the drink that you had before the meal. She'ein berachas hamazon paitrasan, because benching doesn't have the power to cover the berachah acharonah on the drinks that you drank before the meal. The mekevin sheshasa isam kaidam hamaitzi because these drinks, you drank them before the Seudah, einam shayachim l'Seudah klal. What do they have to do with the Seudah? By yayin, we have a logic why yayin is considered part of the Seudah, even if you drank it before the Seudah. Why? Because yayin is an appetizer. Yayin is something that you drink before the Seudah, liftayach hameyayim, to generate an appetite. Therefore, it can be covered by berachas hamazon because it's considered part of the Seudah. But orange juice is not, you don't drink orange juice for an appetizer. Says the Mishnah Berurah, we don't find such a thing. Therefore, what possible excuse would there be to link the orange juice to the Seudah so that berachas hamazon should cover the berachah acharonah in the orange juice? So the Mishnah Berurah says, it's das harbe acharonim. You drank orange juice before you washed, go make a bar of fashis. It's not covered by bentching. Levad yayin saraf, with the exception of whiskey, schnapps, shavel yayin. That's similar to wine, to whom ma'ir tavas hamaychel. That could act as an appetizer. Then he says, va'ayin bir halacha. Take a look at the bir halacha. And he's sending us to bir halacha dibra maschil va'afilu loy hoyaloi. Now this is a lengthy bir halacha. I'm not going to read the whole thing inside, but I'm going to read certain parts. Let's go to the very beginning of the bir halacha. Says the Chavetz Chaim, Ayin Mishnah Berurah, take a look at the Mishnah Berurah, Le'inyan shar mashkin sheshasa leftei hamazon, when it comes to the question of other beverages that you drink before the Seudah. Shesasamnu, where I was seisim, Chavetz Chaim says, I was machriya, over here in the Mishnah Berurah, levarech berachah acharonah, that pashtus you have to make a bar nefashis, b'shem kama acharonim. I wrote that many acharonim say that you drank orange juice before the Seudah, you got to make a bar nefashis because berachas hamazon can't cover it. How is it considered part of the Seudah? V'hu das hamagen Avram. We've seen many times over and over again how the Mishnah Berurah gives extreme preference to the sheet of the Magen Avram. Now skip about a line and a half. V'av she'el yarabah tzidei lifsai ka'elas tamid v'ataz, even though the El Yarabah leans to paskin like the Elas HaTamid and the Taz. The Share Mashkid Shaval Yayin, Lozeh, that other drinks have the same halach as wine. The Taz and the Elas HaTamid say there's no difference between wine and other drinks. Any drink that you drink before the Seudah could be considered an appetizer and therefore part of the Seudah and covered by berachas hamazon. Skip the brackets. Lo yireinu lachush l'divrayim. Chavetz Chaim says, I didn't see fit to be concerned about the shita of the Elas Tamid and the Taz. And instead, when I wrote the Mishnah Berurah, I said, Das harbe acharonim, you got to make a bar nefashis on that cup of orange juice that you drank before the Seudah, because orange juice and yayin are not the same. Yayin could be an appetizer, orange juice cannot. Now, then the Mishnah Berurah, and I'm not going to read this part inside, then the Chavetz Chaim writes over here, why? Why am I not concerned with the Shitas Hataz? Because the Chavetz Chaim says, even the idea that yayin liftei hamazon is covered by berachas hamazon, and even the idea that the yayin of kiddush is covered by berachas hamazon, I already told you in Bir Halacha Dibra Maskil, v'chein, the one that we read earlier, the previous Dibra Maskil, says the Chavetz Chaim, I already told you that the Ramban, the Ran, and Tosfos all hold that even yayin shelifnei hamazon is not covered by berachas hamazon. So says the Chavetz Chaim, I've got a Ramban, a Ran, and a Tosfos that tell me that even yayin, which is known to be an appetizer, and even yayin of kiddush, where you need kiddush b'makom Seudah, even those are not covered by berachas hamazon. So, all right, what am I going to do? The Mechaber was seisim like the Rush. So, okay, in Siman Reish Ayin Vav, I'm going to swallow the psak of the Rush and the Mechaber. Over here, I'm telling you that you should try to kriach out of the suffix in the previous Bir Halacha. But now you want me to extend it even to shar mashkin? Even to orange juice and apple juice? You want me to say that berachas hamazon is going to pot to them if you drank them before the Seudah? Says the Chavetz Chaim, I can't swallow that. And now if you skip about 10 lines, the Bir Halacha says, V'al kein dai lanu shenifter b'yayin. It's enough to get me to swallow the psak to say that berachas hamazon could cover yayin shelifnei hamazon. Sheyayin al kol panim bevadei garer taivas hamaychel k'mavur ba'arosh. Because yayin, we know, acts as an appetizer. V'loi b'shar mashkin. But I'm not willing to follow this psak and to swallow this psak of the oilas hatamid and the taz by drinks other than yayin. Va'afilu im loy birich ad la'achar berachas hamazon yavarach achakach. The Bir Halacha goes so weit that he says if you made a shahakal on a glass of orange juice before the Seudah, and then you drank a revius, so you drank a shear, even less than a revius by orange juice. You drank a shear that you need a bar nefashos, and now you went and you washed it, you had a Seudah, and at the end of the Seudah you benched. Go ahead and make a bar nefashos on the oranges, because benching did not cover that orange juice, because there's no way to connect the orange juice to the Seudah, and there's no way to connect the orange juice to berachas hamazon. That's how far the Chavetz Chaim goes. He's not going to swallow the taz to the extent that even if you benched already, he's going to make you make a bar nefashos. But then, says the Chavetz Chaim near the end of this Bir Halacha, about 4 lines up off the end of the Bir Halacha, says the Chavetz Chaim, but vida, you should know. Everything that I just wrote above, that you have to make a berachah acharonah on the drinks that you drank before the Seudah, that's only if you didn't drink anything during the Seudah. But if you drank orange juice before the Seudah, and now you drank other drinks in middle of the Seudah. You had a glass of orange juice before the Seudah, and now during the Seudah after you washed, you have soda, you have beer. Nishar amagen avram b'sif katan yodalad b'tzarech ian im tzarech levarach berachah acharonah ayin sham. Now the shaila gets bigger. Why? Because if you drank shar hamashkin during the Seudah, benching is definitely going to cover those drinks. Once benching is going to cover those drinks, we're going to say that benching is going to drink the drink that you drank lifnei hamazon. Why? Because we're going to consider the drinks that you drank b'soich hamazon to be a continuation of the drink that you drank lifnei hamazon. So in that case, the Chavetz Chaim says, "V'alkein kasav sham the ba'ifin zed tov shelo yishte kaidem adatila rak pachas b'revius ayin sham." In that case, the Magen Avram says, don't drink enough before the Seudah to generate the need for a berachah acharonah. So what do we get after all of this? What we get after all of this is that the Chavetz Chaim is very, very concerned with these sveikas. Now, where does it come back to us? That's a phrase that I've said a lot over the last couple of shiurim. Where does this all come back to us? So, l'chayra, again, the place it comes back to us the most is by kiddush. You go ahead and you make kiddush. So right away, the first issue that we spoke about today is that's yayin shelifnei hamazon, but it's not really yayin shelifnei hamazon because you're not drinking it as an appetizer. You're drinking it because out of a chiyuv of kiddush. You're drinking it lemitzvah. You're drinking it for a chiyuv of kiddush. Does benching cover the yayin of kiddush? That's shaila number 1. Over here in Siman Kuf Ayin Daled, in the Bir Halachas that we've seen over here, the Chavetz Chaim is very uncomfortable. But, again, in Siman Reish Ayin Vav, in Hilchas Shabbos, we have a very straightforward mechaber, where the mechaber says, Berachas Yayin Shel Kiddush, the bracha Rishona that you make on the Yayin of Kiddush covers all the Yayin that you're going to drink in the Seudah. That's the bracha Rishona. Very, very clear. The Mishnah Berurah says the bracha Rishona is going to cover all of the Yayin that you're going to drink b'soich HaSeudah. And then the Mechaber says, Ve'enoi tarn bracha la'akrav. And it doesn't need a bracha la'akrav. It doesn't need a bracha acharonah. Why, says the Mechaber? The berkas hamazon paitrasai. Because benching will pater the yayin of kiddush. And the Mishnah Berurah says in Reish Ayin Vav, that's true, bentching ala kos, bentching ein ala kos, whether you end up drinking more wine during the Shabbos Seudah or not. So you made a hagafen on the, you made a hagafen on kiddush. That hagafen is going to cover all of the yayin that you drink b'soich Seudah. That's as far as berachah rishona. As far as berachah acharonah, bentching is going to cover the yayin of kiddush. That's very clear in the Mechaber. And the Mishnah Berurah says over there, in Ois Kat and Lamed Zayin, the reason bentching is going to cover the yayin of kiddush is the koishel kiddush uganken beklal dvarim haba machmas hasuda, because it is considered machmas hasuda, and since it's machmas hasuda, it's covered by bentching. And nowhere over here on the page in Siman Reish Ayin Vav does the Mishnah Berurah question this psak. Again, not in the Mishnah Berurah, not in the Bir Halacha, not in the Shar Tzion. So if you ask me, in Siman Reish Ayin Vav, the Mishnah Berurah is machriya like the psak of the Mechaber. He doesn't question the psak of the Mechaber here at all. Now, why he questions it over here in Chelik Beis and why he doesn't question it at all in Chelik Gimel, I don't know. But that's what I'm seeing right now. So that's as far as the question of does bentching cover the yayin of kiddush according to the Chavetz Chaim. Now, then we go to the question of shar mashkin. Now again, where does it come back to us? So the first thing that you would say is, again, it comes back to us by kiddush. What happens if by kiddush, I make kiddush on wine, and now I drink some soda, or now I drink a coffee? Well, let's analyze that. What happens as far as the berachah rishona on the soda or the coffee? Well, the berachah of hagafen on kiddush is going to cover the soda and it's going to cover the coffee. You don't need a berachah rishona. Once you make a berachah rishona on yayin, any other drink that you drink is a tuffle to the yayin. So you don't need a berachah rishona on the soda. You don't need a berachah rishona on the coffee. How about berachah acharonah? Let's say you're making this kiddush not right before the Seudah. You're at a friend's house. Your friend is making a kiddush. So you went to the friend's house for kiddush. You had kiddush. You had wine. You were yotze with kiddush. Now you had a coffee, right? Do you have to make a berachah acharonah on the coffee? The answer is no. Why? Because the alagefen, if you make an alagefen on the wine, the alagefen on the wine patters the coffee. If you drink a revius of wine and you have a chiyuv to make an alagefen, you don't make a bar nefashos on your coffee. Your alagefen on the yayin is going to patter the coffee. But what if you don't have a chiyuv to make an alagefen? What if you only had a sip of wine? You had less than a revius of wine. Then you have to make a bar nefashos. Now, another question. Let's say this kiddush was right before the Seudah. If this kiddush was right before the Seudah, so we're saying that you're never going to make an alagefen. Why aren't you going to make an alagefen? Because bentching is going to patter the berachah acharonah on the wine. But why is bentching going to patter the berachah acharonah on the wine? Bentching is going to cover the berachah acharonah on the wine because the wine is considered machmas hasuda. But the coffee is not machmas hasuda. So bentching can't cover the coffee, if you look at it that way. That's when this shaila comes up. Oh, this is this Mishnah Berurah that's discussing, can bentching cover the coffee also? Could bentching cover shar mashkin that you drink before the Seudah? So here's the shaila. You had a coffee by kiddush. Could bentching cover the coffee? First thing we have to ask is, this is usually not negeya. Why is it usually not negeya? Because between the Mishnah Berurah and the Bir Halacha, what we saw is, if you're going to drink other drinks during the Seudah, then there's no shaila. Now, who has a Shabbos Seudah without drinking other drinks? During the Shabbos Seudah, you're going to drink other drinks. Since you're going to drink other drinks during the Shabbos Seudah, it's a non-issue. It's a non-starter. Because once you drink other drinks during the Seudah, the same way bentching is going to cover those drinks, bentching is also going to cover the coffee. Now, how about if, for some weird reason, you didn't drink any other drinks during the Seudah? So now you had yayin of kiddush, you had a coffee by kiddush, so you drank shar mashkin before the Seudah. Now you're benching. Benching is going to cover the yayin, but we have a whole shiloh over here of whether or not it covers shari mashkin. And the Mishnah Berurah is very uncomfortable. with it covering Shari Mashkin. So we have an Aruch HaShulchan. The Aruch HaShulchan says very clear. He says, V'yesh michakasav derak yayin bol of tayach hamayayim v'loy shar mashkin. There are those that say that it's only a din in yayin, that yayin could be an appetizer, and therefore it could be covered by birkas hamazon, but not shar mashkin, and therefore v'tzarek levarach berachah acharonah, and therefore you have to make a berachah acharonah on shar mashkin that you drank kaidam hamazon. So says he's bringing down the Magen Avraham. Says the Aruch HaShulchan, Avol zeh yadua lanu, it's very well known to us, shegam share mashkin boim liftayach hamayayin, that even other beverages act as an appetizer. And he says, therefore, Avol ikar ladina degam bervias eitzarch berachah acharonah, he goes with the Taz, and he says that even share mashkin sheliftei hamazon, you don't have to make a separate berachah acharonah. They are all covered by benching. So at the end of the day, that's when I hope that Olam doesn't mind that I was a ma'arich on this shaila, but I think it was very important just to see how the Chavetz Chaim deals with something complicated like this. My Rebbe, Reb Feinstein Stark, always told me you have to remember that the Chavetz Chaim was a Rosh Yeshiva. It wasn't a Rav. The Aruch HaShulchan was a Rav. What's the difference? The difference is that a Rosh Yeshiva is giving a shir. A Rosh Yeshiva is being mimic in the shittas and in the halacha and figuring out the lamdas. A Rav has to paskin shilas all the time. The Aruch HaShulchan was a Rav, and therefore he had a derech psak, and therefore sometimes the Aruch HaShulchan, there's sometimes a greater clarity. The Aruch HaShulchan issues a psak. He says, no, we go like the Taz. And if you're the Aruch HaShulchan, I read to you just a few lines of the Aruch HaShulchan. The Aruch HaShulchan is a ma'arich in the shaila. And he says, the minig poshet is that we go with this Taz. And once you're going to wash and you're going to bench, the birkas hamazon is going to cover everything. There's no shilas on any other berachah acharonahs or anything else. All right, I see how long this took. I'm not going to move on now to Siv Zion. I'm going to try to squeeze in an extra share at some point. I know we're quite far behind from the Dirshu schedule already, but I don't want to keep on losing pages and losing pages. So I'll try to squeeze in another share at some point. Olam should bear with me. I hope you enjoy it the way I set it out. The schos of limud HaTorah should be making against Klal Yisrael. The Rebbe should send Yeshua's refuahs parnassah shtukim to all those in need. We should be zeicher to see the geula shlema with the Bias Goel Tzedek b'meherav Yameinu. Amen. Be well.